Hey guys, Kevin Shaw here, Editor-in-Chief of Mopar Connection magazine, back here in the home garage, and we're going to button up the 69 Charger and get it back on the road today. For a lot of you guys who might have missed it, a couple weeks ago we were up at Bowling Green for test and tune with the Charger, and to be honest, it really was our first time back at the track with a 5-speed in it. I had driven the car plenty of times with an automatic, but this was my first go around with the Tremec TKX. Needless to say, this driver needs a lot more time behind the wheel when it comes to getting a really good launch, and that just comes with time. But one of our first takeaways was the fact that traction was certainly not our problem. Our CalTrack setup with our double adjustable QA1 shocks and certainly our Mickey Thompson ET Street Super Sports were definitely doing the job and getting the car to hook up. So much so that we actually tore our aluminum drive shaft. The drive shaft in question was made for us by the good guys over at Knoxville Driveline a little over a year ago. I do not blame the drive shaft for the failure. There was just too many different factors all meeting at once that simply overpowered this drive shaft. It was important for us to get all the information as to what went wrong so that we didn't replicate it with our future drive shaft that we're going to install today. So what exactly happened? The number one problem was the driver. The buck ends with me and I take all the blame. For my entire life I've been racing automatics at the drag strip. And to be honest and perfectly candid, this was my first time running a stick shift out of the box. Now when it comes to racing a foot brake car, I can do it pretty good. But in this case, with the Charger now being equipped with a Tremec 5-speed, I simply was using the old habits of running an automatic with a stick shift. What does that exactly mean? Number one is that I do not have the benefit of what a few friends called a 30-pound jelly donut, which is my torque converter, absorbing all the impact of that crankshaft, putting all that torque through that transmission. And I let the clutch out as fast as I did, all 700 pound-feet of torque went shooting right through the Tremec, down the drive shaft, and ran into a brick wall in the form of my Mickey Thompsons refusing to spin. And that's what actually caused most of the damage done to the drive shaft and splitting it right at the yoke. So after speaking with some more seasoned 4-speed and 5-speed drag racers, guys who participate in a lot of drag and drive events, as well as a few of you guys who are a little bit more seasoned in the comments section, and I do appreciate your input, the consensus of course is that a manual requires a little bit of tire slippage. It does want to break free, and that way the clutch doesn't have to eat all that force. You really want to have that slippage in the tires instead of at the clutch. That is, of course, unless you have a specified slipper clutch. They do make those. It's not exactly what we want to run in the Charger for our combination, but there are slipper clutches for guys who are competitively drag racing a manual transmission car. But in our instance, I got to let those tires slip a lot more. So the plan going forward is to adjust a little bit of how I launch the car. Number one, I'm going to up the tire pressure to see how the tires like it. Number two, I'm going to try not doing a burnout. I'm just going to see how the car likes to hook with the tires cold. If we need a little bit more traction, then I'll go back to doing the burnout. If I need that hookup again, I might air down the tires just a hair and find the sweet spot. Of course, the biggest thing that needs to be adjusted is my pedal control, and that just comes with time and experience. Now, while I'm happy to take the onus for what happened at the track, again, the buck stops with me, and I don't make any excuses for it, I do want to talk a little bit about what I learned consequently as to what went wrong with this drive shaft. Again, the guys at Knoxville Driveline did a fantastic job. There isn't anything that they did wrong. They built the drive shaft according to spec as we gave them. Unfortunately, what we weren't talking about was actually heavy drag racing and hard launches. And when you are considering an aluminum drive shaft for this kind of abuse, there are certain aspects that need to be considered. Number one, what universal joints are we running? We had to change all the universal joints up to the stouter solid 1350 universal. And Spicer offers those, and so do a lot of other big names for universal joints. That's something that we did not do for the original drive shaft that we had built. So in this case, for our new drive shaft, we upped to the big 1350s. Number two was the actual overall or outside diameter of the drive shaft itself. In most cases, if you're making over 600 to 625 horsepower, most experts want you to run a 3.5-inch diameter, if not a 4-inch diameter aluminum tube with a thicker wall thickness. In this case, this drive shaft was made at 3 inches with a thinner wall tube. This is a really great drive shaft for street use, a little bit of hot rodding around town. This was really not intended for the type of abuse that would come from running a drag radial on a prepared track. It just was not built for it. I came equipped with the wrong parts. This was great on Power Tour. This was great for around town. Aluminum is still a very, very viable material for a high performance vehicle. It absorbs a lot of harmonic. It actually takes a lot of vibration out. And the natural characteristics of aluminum are such that if there is failure, like there was in our case, the tube itself takes the damage, not your floorboard. Aluminum does not, in most cases, come piercing through the floor like a steel drive shaft does. A couple of you guys were saying, oh man, I would never trust aluminum. I would only go with steel. And unfortunately, steel is just a really dangerous option when it comes to making that kind of power. You'll even look at a lot of the big drag and drive guys, the Tom Baileys, and even the Steve Morrises. They're all running carbon fiber. When a carbon fiber drive shaft lets go, it quite literally explodes. It blows up into a big cloud of dried resin and bits and pieces of carbon fiber, but there's no mechanical damage done. In fact, the floors are looking fine, the exhaust isn't torn up, there's really no physical damage. In the case of our aluminum drive shaft, even with it whapping around without a drive shaft loop, which a lot of you guys noticed and I admitted to, we didn't have any damage done to our floor. In fact, the biggest piece of damage that was done was a tiny little nick of our rubberized undercoating being chipped off, and you can see a little bit of the primer coat underneath it. Other than that, the aluminum tube, just like I showed you right here, took all the damage. So aluminum to us was still a very viable direction to go. Now again, the failure was not at the weld. Again, I have to reemphasize, I do not blame Knoxville and I do not blame this drive shaft. I blame me for using something that really was not intended to do. And I just pushed the limits of this drive shaft. The metal itself tore just behind the weld. Now that portion right there at the yoke is actually considered a heat sink. And that's where a lot of the heat and that's where all the torque in the tube is going to end up. By the time I made my second burnout, that portion of the drive shaft was already really hot and, to be honest, pretty soft. And this is all information that you can get from any drive shaft shop who does dabble in high performance cars, as well as any seasoned drag racer. It wasn't but a couple hours after we reported on our social media what had happened at Beach Bend that we immediately got contacted by the team at Gulfcoast Driveshafts. And Gulfcoast Driveshafts, for you guys down in the Tampa area, you might already know them because they're involved with some of the biggest names in drag and drive and competitive drag racing. We knew them through our friend Dave Hintzman, who drives a pretty wild pro-charged Mustang, late model Mustang. But they also do a lot of the cars that you see on the Sick Week events. They do a lot of Steve Morris's cars. These guys know how to handle upwards to 4,000 or 5,000 horsepower. And I'm not making a joke. We're talking 4,000 or 5,000 horsepower. That's more power than what some World War II fighter planes were making. So needless to say, it was very humbling for them to reach out, especially when we're only playing with about 660, maybe 665 horsepower and a little bit more than that in torque. We're not even playing in the same sandbox as those guys making 1,000 horsepower, if not 3,000 or 4,000 horsepower. We're pump gas. This is a street car. It's pretty tame compared to the stuff that they're used to. So Melissa and her team at Gulfcoast gave us a call, got all of our measurements, got all the specs on the car, got our weight, engine displacement, our basic power numbers, and what we had planned in the future for the car, because I am building another engine for the car, and built a drive shaft that was going to not only meet all those demands, but also frankly meet all the current demands that we had with the car. We went from 3 inches to 3.5 inches. Additionally, we went to a thicker wall thickness. They went from a T6 to a T7. That's really more of a heat rating, which is effectively a 60-61 aluminum up to a 70-71 aluminum. So we have a little bit of a thicker wall thickness, and we do have a larger diameter. And it was counterbalanced. We do have the chart we'll show you here, as well as upgrading our universal joints to 1350s. So we're all making preventative changes so that when the big Hemi comes in, I'm not making a phone call to the guys at Gulfcoast going, so, thank you for the first one, we need to make a second one. This time around, they wanted to do it once, and they wanted to do it right. The drive shaft that came in is incredibly stout. It's got a nice neutral finish to it, and it's already been counterbalanced and it's been weighted. They also replaced our input yoke. This is a nice billet steel piece. As you can see, they're running the green snap clips on the 1350 universal joint, and we have pretty much everything that we need going forward in installing this. We still haven't put in a drive shaft hoop, but today we're just getting the car up and running and back on its 4 wheels. Again, we have to thank the guys at Gulfcoast Driveshaft. They really stepped it up with making this and doing so very, very quickly. Shops like Gulfcoast, even the guys at Knoxville, they are very accustomed to making a quick turnaround, even on a custom drive shaft. And all it takes is a phone call and all of your information, and professionals like these guys can knock out a top quality drive shaft in just a matter of hours. One thing when it comes to the high performance end of an aluminum drive shaft, the guys at Gulfcoast do prefer to let the drive shaft itself actually cool before final assembly and balance. That's an extra step that they take primarily so that they get an accurate balance on it, and that is something that a lot of you guys would come to appreciate. I know I do. So one more thing that we need to address is the pinion yoke that's on the Dana 60. It is not set for a 1350 universal joint. So as you can see, and it's all masked up, but we're going to get this nice and close to the camera without hitting the car, is that you can see that we have a C-clipped cap, and then we have the 1350 style snap rings on the sides. This is a hybrid universal. This would be a 1350 out here, but a smaller diameter here. This is what would fit a factory style Dana 60. We are going to be changing that out. We've already placed on order the pinion yoke and the proper square or 1350 universal that goes all the way around. We're going to be changing that with the drive shaft in the car at a later date. This is just to get the car running. We're still about a month away from the next time we're going to be able to go to the track. We want to get this video out, show the car running. So we're going to get this in just a couple minutes, but rest assured, by the time this video's out, my pinion yoke is going to be in my garage, as well as the new universal, and we'll be swapping that out before we hit the track again. I promise you, I'm not going to make the same mistakes twice. This time around, I'm gonna make all new mistakes. I hate that I know I'm gonna scrape up this really pretty drive shaft just trying to get it in. But it just seems like one of those foregone conclusions. Now, the pinion yoke, or excuse me, the input yoke is keyed. So it can only go in one way. So I'm gonna have to play with this a little bit before I find where it wants to go. Oh, did I find it that easily? Ah, get out of here. Well, that was a blessing. Okay, let's take your tape off. Oh, that went in so nice. Ah, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, this has all sorts of clearance. I don't know what you're worried about. Okay, maybe I could have put a 4-inch in here. You know, I didn't even put the car that far in the air. Probably should have. Figured I could get away with it. Alright, come on, you. Oh, yeah. Okay. There we go. These super sensitive, fine threads. There. That's not so bad. How smooth that turns. Like butter. And to think the guys at the track thought maybe I lost an axle. Goodness. Just as long as everything in the transmission is happy, then I'll be happy. Just trying to have the same thread count sticking out on both ends, that's all. Alright, well. Okay, Kevin. I think you got it. I think we're good. Okay, we've got the drive shaft in. Everything's buttoned up. In fact, I drove it late last night. It is the second day, and honestly, it's right back to normal. I was a little bit afraid that I might have damaged the clutch a little bit, or that I might have just glazed the hell out of it, dumping it like I was. But this car is absolutely happy to be back on the road. The McLeod clutch and the Silver Sport transmission are absolutely flawless. and it cruises around the neighborhood like a cruiser. So I'm very happy with it, and we're just gonna drive it around. We're gonna give it a couple rips. I'm again driving around my hometown, so I'm not gonna really break the law. I might goose it a little bit, but I'm not looking to make any hard hits. I did bring the tire pressure in the back up to 25 pounds. That is a little bit higher than the 20 pounds we were running at the track. I'll probably bring it down maybe to 23, 24 the next time we go to test and tune. But for right now, everything is very happy. I still didn't adjust the shocks back, so I do have them set up at 90-10 in front and 10-90 in the back. So it will squat a little bit, but nothing too crazy. But for right now, this was really just to test out the drive shaft and to make sure that I hadn't damaged the car in any other way. I don't really like surprises, especially when it comes to taking your car to the track. Gear. This shifter hates going into third gear. You cannot put any pressure on this shifter when going from second to third. You cannot put any pressure on it. It absolutely hates it. Unfortunately, the 2-3 shift, and for that matter, the 4-5 shift, is just really awkward. So I'm really trying to find where it wants to be and how much pressure I can give it. I think I barely need to roll it in the palm of my hand because it just does not like it. See, even barely pushing. Yeah, I don't like blaming the part, but I need to find out how it wants to go. Yeah, I need a little bit more time to find out how this really wants to shift, because the 2-3 shift on this is a very awkward gate. I gotta say, the guys at Gulfcoast Driveshafts, they knocked out that aluminum drive shaft in just a couple days and shipped it from Central Florida up to Nashville. It took a day and a half. It was so fast. So I really got to give it to these guys. It really is impressive when you find a shop who not only knows what they're doing, but is super professional, and they call to confirm, they double check on stuff. They're not the ones forgetting, oftentimes the customer is the one who forgets stuff and has to call back and go, oh, I forgot to tell you. These guys, they were calling me and saying, oh, hey, listen, want to make sure that you're running this yoke, or want to make sure you're running this U-joint, or wanted to confirm this size. Totally on top of it. Really impressive people. Okay, so this is pretty much just going to wrap this up for today. Just got back from doing another rip in the car. In fact, you can see that it's nighttime outside right now. So really happy with the final result. Huge thanks to the guys at Gulfcoast Driveshaft. Again, it took them a matter of days to get that drive shaft ordered, perfect to spec, balanced, shipped out, and I had it installed in a few minutes, and we were out on the road again. So it was really awesome for those guys to step up and to want to be involved with this project car. So big thanks to Melissa and her team at Gulfcoast Driveline. We're going to put all the information in the description below so that you guys can reach out and give them your business, because holy cow, they absolutely knocked it out of the park this time around. They also are very knowledgeable. So if you guys are building a race car, if you guys are even building just a hot street car, call them up, talk to their technicians. These guys are really, really sharp. They know their stuff. So if you are curious about drive shafts, if you're curious about your application, why don't you hit them up? They know what they're talking about. Really, really sharp guys. Again, we want to thank everyone who was involved with this project car. Want to thank Chris Wozniak for going out to the track with us. Want to thank Silver Sport Transmissions for even getting us this far with the 5-speed Tremec TKX. Want to thank the guys at McLeod Racing, McLeod Clutches, Will Beatty in particular. They've been really helpful in making sure that we have the right setup. And we want to thank all the guys at Summit Racing and at Mickey Thompson Tire, because without them, we wouldn't be in this. We wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. Again, really excited. We're going to be taking the car out to Beach Bend for the next test and tune. We've had some really crazy weather in the last few weeks. So unfortunately, they've had some crazy flooding. I'll put up a picture or two. They're doing their best to clear out the track, but their schedule's been bumped back. So that kind of bumps all the test and tune guys back a little bit. So be patient. I have to be patient. We got to wait till the track's open. But we're going to be taking the Charger back out very, very soon as they'll let us. But until that time, guys, we want to thank you all for watching the video all the way through. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, why don't you hit that little button down at the bottom. And if you want more awesome Mopar content, this is the big pitch. moparconnectionmagazine.com is where you're going to find new articles written and published for you every single day, Monday through Friday, entirely subscription free. There's no password, there's no downloads, there's no app, there's nothing special. As long as you got a Wi-Fi signal, you can get it on your phone, your tablet, your computer, even your TV. If you have Wi-Fi, if you have access to the internet, you're reading the magazine for free. So why don't you go and visit us over at www.moparconnectionmagazine.com. Check out the new articles that we publish every day, Monday through Friday. You can even sign up for a weekly newsletter so you don't have to go back every single day, and see what all the progress is on this car and all the other project cars we're working on, as well as so much other stuff happening within the hobby. Guys, thanks again, and we'll see you at the magazine.